So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. Paddy's back. How are you, Paddy?
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Neil, I'm just about to brighten up your Tuesday evening. Have a read of this message.
I knew that was coming. I just saw it come in. Caden, how are you doing? Caden is a gentleman, a brilliant young man that we met when we were over at the Forest game. Delighted to see you tuned in, Caden. Say hello to your dad for us as well. And Caden, I saw it. He cheated in that game of snooker. Okay.
Good to see you in watching us live, Caden.
Absolutely. Paddy, it's good to have you back as well from your séjour from podcasting. Nothing really much happened. We got linked to a ton of players. Pau Torres signed officially, but we always knew that was going to happen.
Nothing really happened. I spoke to you every day while I was lying on the beach, sipping funny beer and funny cocktails and stuff. But it was nice to get a break. And a break when we were quiet. So other than Pau Torres coming in, which we knew was going to happen anyway, it was just a question of him getting back off his honeymoon. But it's good to be back, and I'm buzzing for the weekend. That we've got the obligatory Walsall friendly out of the way, and blooded a few players in there and let them have their go. I'm not going to go back over that in any detail because there's very little to outline other than we came out of it unscathed, no injuries to report, and some young Lions managed to get some minutes under their belt at that level. Not that you can tell much against Walsall, a team that were playing 4 trialists as well. So we won't read too much into it, but it all ramps up from here as we go into 3 Premier League fixtures, albeit no team will be at full tilt, and then an Italian and Spanish opposition to get us prepared for the upcoming playoff, which I'm sure we'll be talking about in 2 weeks' time when the draw's made.
Definitely. Do you know what, Paddy? Let's start this off because we're going to talk about Moussa Diaby. I see a lot of people saying here that Moussa Diaby's gone to Al Nassr. Show me a reputable source. And then I will be convinced. But before we do that, before we talk about Diaby, I said that we would pick a draw for a winner of a Pau Torres shirt yesterday. I was called away on. I usually work from this very office, would you believe? Yes, with all my Villa paraphernalia behind me, I do go on video conferences and stuff like that because I rock this no matter what. But I was called away from work yesterday, so I had to travel yesterday, and I just didn't get around to doing a draw for the winner. So I am going to do the draw for the winner right now, and let me just share up my screen so we can have no. Oh, wait a minute. Won't let me share my screen. Well, it will now because I pressed pick a winner by mistake. Here we go. Let's pick up and drum roll, please, Paddy. The winner of our shirt is. I want a chair. Is Mr. Spencer SMB112. There is your Twitter account, Spencer. Get in contact with us. We'd be delighted to send you a Pau Torres shirt and start off your week. Well, the week is only the start of the week and start that off. So well done, Spencer. There is just for anybody who's wondering, there is the winner picked via the random pick generator. So congratulations, Spencer. Pau Torres jersey on its way to you. DM us and we will get that to you ASAP. So that's first little bit of good news, bit of business done, Paddy.
I'm guessing you picked Pau Torres because he just picked the letters PAU and it's a nice and cheap one to get done. I'm only joking. Well, I know you did it because he was already
he signed. That's what it was. Yeah, he did it. And if Diaby signs, we'll have a Diaby shirt up for grabs as well for anybody who wants it. I can do with every signing because I think that we could be a bit busier than a lot of other people think. And They say the money making venture this podcast, believe me. So it's so we'll do it for any of the big name signings anyway.
There's a lot of speculation in the chat there about Diaby. So I will give my so-called experts opinion that was given to me today.
Yeah.
And the latest news from him is, and he's usually fairly good and on the money. He doesn't come into the comments or anything like that. But apparently we have agreed the price with Leverkusen, and it is now up to the player to decide what he wants to do. If he wants to go and get the money bags, I think that tells a lot about where he wants his career to go. If he wants to play in Europe and worry about his international future, that tells a lot about him too. So what will be will be. If he wants to come, he wants to come. And I would imagine that there is a lot of other suitors if he doesn't come. And I just admire the fact that our club doesn't come out and actively say that they're going to sign some player, because I just think the shit that's been done at the moment and the tapping up of players, blatant tapping up of players, whatever way you want to call it, by other teams. So not our players, thankfully, so far. But some of the stuff that's going on at the moment is very questionable. But that's what I've been told today. The fee has been agreed. I would imagine that whatever Saudi club it is, it's the Saudi club that currently have a transfer ban. Al Nassr, is it? Is there
Al Nassr, Ronaldo's club.
Ronaldo's club. Yeah, Ronaldo, who I've muted on Twitter because
you put me in bad form. Paddy sends me screenshots of Cristiano Ronaldo tweets this morning, and I've Cristiano and Ronaldo. So I've got four things muted on Twitter. 4 things. The only 4 things I have: Piers Morgan, Cristiano, Ronaldo, Souness. They're the 4 things I've got muted on Twitter. And if you can guess what all 4 of those things have in common, yeah, you don't win a prize. But I just muted them because I'm sick of seeing posts about those 4 people, about those 3 people. Well, Cristiano Ronaldo probably is 2 people in himself. But it's, yeah, so you sent me on that stuff about him talking about that he was like the left nut off God's bollocks, like, you know, the way he was talking about himself, that he was the best thing ever in the whole entire world. And my God, he's like, give me a break.
Well, when I went in to mute Cristiano Ronaldo and CR7, this is the only other thing I had muted was Love Island. So
I had that muted for a while, and then I realized it never shows up my timeline, so no one was talking about it.
So I'm so happy not to be seeing Ronaldo showing up today. Not that I was online too much today, but that is the case. If that works, I love that function on Twitter that you can actually mute these things. So I might be muting a few more in the future.
Yeah, it's, look, as I say, Paddy, like going back to Diaby, let's talk about it for a moment, because like we're not ITK, hashtag
No.
ITK. Another thing that we should probably mute on Twitter. We're not hashtag ITK.
I think someone called me an ITK in the chat there.
Paddy ITK. There you go. There's guys. I didn't even see that when you mentioned it.
And I'm certainly not claiming to be ITK. And I did preface it by saying that this guy is usually on the money, the guy who's giving me the information. And I don't think it's any big secret that we would have met what we're looking for in order to have a conversation. So I don't think that's any ITK or him speaking out of turn that is the case. But I imagine as well he has another option on the table from Leverkusen to increase his wages and keep him there. So yeah, time will tell. But I certainly won't be losing any sleep anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, and like as we said before, there's more than one way to skin a cat when you're talking about wingers. But obviously, you know what, you want to get in. Mark, good to see you, ITB. But you know, when you want to get a winger in there, it is important, I suppose, that we don't stray too far from, you know, what our main options are. Like that Al Nassr thing, the person who said he's agreed to deal with Al Nassr is, I did see it online. Yeah, he's got 300,000 fans. He literally only reports on Saudi football. Like I don't know how true it is. I genuinely don't. I would probably go so far as to say that, like, I'm not even sure I fully believe what L'Equipe are putting out, and the player is French. So I don't know. Like, it's a wicked web that's being weaved with this one. And I think with a lot of transfers, Saudi clubs are trying to get across the line. They're, yeah, we'll let this one pan out. I think, like, the reputable places are saying he wants to choose Aston Villa. He wants to come to Aston Villa. I can't imagine playing in the Saudi Pro League is going to get him into Didier Deschamps' mind, I suppose,
I
for
wouldn't
French
imagine so.
squads.
No.
I just can't imagine it. Maybe it will in 2 or 3 years' time. But this is a gamble for players at the moment. You know, you go over there and it's like Cristiano Ronaldo, and thanks Paddy, because I had to go down the fucking rabbit hole looking at stuff that he said, talking about it's better than the MLS and all this kind of crack. He was clearly just shooting shots across Messi's bow. That's all he was doing, because he's a petty, petulant fuck, is what he is, to be honest with you. He really is. He's a petty man. He's
some
not
people
a
have
leader.
used those words about me.
Oh wait, sorry, I hadn't even gotten on to Ronaldo yet. But no, he's just, and sorry, you know, I'm a bit amped up about him in general. Just like, he just annoys me so much. Like, the man has a platform that he could do so much more with, other than just come out and tell everybody that his toast never falls butter side down. Like, you know, it's so childish. Is what it is. He's a childish man. And
Well, look, we
anyway,
go back to when you told me that he was going to Saudi Arabia, and my exact words to you were, "It's not fucking far enough away," and I was right. Still listening to the bullshit. I'm glad that I was there on that day in Villa Park when we saw his absolute demise of a player that can play in a decent league, and I include the MLS in that too, which is a great league and a great league to watch football and a great place to watch football. Saudi Arabia certainly isn't. The man is full of shit.
And Mark makes a good point here. You know, this is Saudi's moment, like, and it could be the start of their moment, their decade, their 100 years in the sun. Who knows? Excuse the pun. But
or it could be the start of what they're doing with the Chinese Super League as well. So it's a brand new league as far as I'm concerned. The MLS is established. Every other good league in Europe is established, and I wouldn't even put it in the halfpenny place. And what you say is true. If Diaby goes there, good luck to him trying to get into the French team.
Yeah, and I think that is a point of consideration. And look, if he goes there, like, we're not here. I'm not. You'll know me. There's very few players that I sit here and I go, it's him or no one. It's him or no one. The last player I did that with, I think, was Bentancur. For when it went to Spurs, I was like, man, we could have really got Bentancur, and Bentancur I thought was perfect for us at that point in time. I really did, and like, it's very, very seldom that I would, you know, as I say, my motto is always, there's more than one way to win a football match, you know, whether it be tactically, whether it be, you know, whether it be the players that we bring into the team. It's just when we're talking about this specific player, because it's now, and another thing, Paddy, these things always tend to happen 6 o'clock. Like, you know, news breaks at certain times during the day because it elicits the most conversation, there's the most eyes on it as well. Look for that stuff too, you know.
Yeah.
We'll see how this pans out. As I say, he might end up going to Saudi. He may very well end up going to Saudi, but Villa will bring in a winger, and we will be happy, I would imagine, with who comes in that door. And remember,
we're only being talked about alleged interest in this player. There's no any one person from the club claiming that this is done, or claiming that we're totally invested in this. So he could be one of many that we're looking at to fill that void that he sees within the team. So, and let's have a special mention to someone who really impressed me at the weekend is Jayden Philogene, as I think he wants to be called now, who looked very, very sharp, very, very committed, and obviously is going to be in and around the team. And Unai Emery has obviously got a bit of faith in him to play him and have him part of the squad. I know he did play the likes of Omari Kellyman and a few others who won't be in and around the first team. We were still short our internationals at the weekend. We're still short Leon Bailey. So there's lots of ways of looking at this, but I'm glad for Philogene to get a run at the weekend. I hope he brings him to America. I hope we get to see what he's capable over there. And put him up against Premier League opposition, because there's absolutely no way we're going to go out against Newcastle and show our hand for what's coming at the start of the season. So with having them as the first match of the season, I would imagine that the weekend will be the time that we will see a number of young players come in and let them try and prove themselves.
Oh, sorry, I clicked on that one by mistake. I was trying to click on this. Matt Hanlon's in the house. Matt, thank you very much. Pint for podcasters. I was just pouring myself a can there. I've had a long day of traveling today, and this is I've made this one. I've earned this one, should I say? Flyby, since I'm working, but wanted to throw money at you to say thanks in advance. Matt, thank you so much.
Cheers,
for
Matt.
that. Really appreciate that, man. Really do. Paddy, since we're talking there about Amari Kelly, man, all those guys there as well. Look, and there was a reason we didn't do a post match against Walsall. Like if we'd won 5 or 6-0, or we'd scored a lot of goals and we could have seen things proper potential, I suppose it would have been worth doing maybe a post match on. The game was pretty tedious at times,
Yeah.
Goal we conceded was brutal, absolutely brutal. Matt striker stood in front of the goalkeeper, and he did what all strikers do: take 3 steps back as that ball comes in. Ball just landed at his feet, and he tapped it in. You're like looking at it, going, "Oh my god, why wasn't there somebody with him?" Like it was a goal you concede in your first preseason game when you've got a centre half partnership that never played. Well, sorry, I won't say never played together before, but centre half partnership that are very, very inexperienced with each other. So
everything about it was a bit disjointed. I read absolutely nothing into it. It's the one preseason friendly of the year, which is vital for a club like Walsall, a great club like Walsall. It does an awful lot towards their funding for the season, and it's great that we help them out in a way that we rent the stadium off them for our women's team to play,
yes.
and plus we give them the gate on that first match of the season, which really helps fund them for the season ahead. So it's great to look after a good fine local club like Walsall going into the new season, and that's what that fixture is all about. It's about blowing off the cobwebs. It's about fellas getting a half an hour, 60 minutes under their belt, and we had a lot of young lads in there at the weekend. So very little to read into. I think when it comes to Sunday night, when you're full of the joys of spring after the All-Ireland final, it might be a different match to talk about.
But like sometimes, like it's funny. Yeah, I'm more confident of Moussa Diaby signing for Aston Villa than I am in Limerick winning at the weekend, and that's for Irish fans. And Irish fans are probably just gone. They've gone, "Oh, will you ever shut up? They've won it like 4 of the last 3 years, or 3 of the last 4 years. For God's sake, I don't know." But I am. I'll always be nervous for that, but it's going to be an interesting team sheet tantrum. Put it that way. I think
either way
for the game at the weekend. Either way, I could be the grumpiest man on the planet, or I could be salubrious with alcohol at that stage. Paddy, great question here from Tim Hurley. Great question here, and I'd like your opinion on it. Are you happy with just 2 new players heading into the preseason going to America, or were you expecting more?
I did expect more. I expected the bulk of our business to be done by the time they leave on Wednesday. I think it is. They go
Tomorrow.
Wednesday or Thursday, whatever it is. But
tomorrow, yeah.
But we have to put in the but here. People need to be a little bit relaxed about this, because bear in mind that we do need to shift on a couple of the players that are in there before we can go balls deep into this transfer window. I do envisage there will be more signings. I 100% think there'll be more signings. I think if there's an option to get the signing of Diaby over the line before they go to America, it'll be done. But if it doesn't, I don't think he'll lose any sleep over it either. I think he knows what he wants. I think he knows what targets are gettable. And I think we'll see one, like the trip to America is only just over a week. So I'm not overly concerned about that. And we've another decent couple of fixtures to blood people in there when they come back as well. So I did expect it to be done, yes. But when you're looking around that squad, I think we counted 8 or 9 players that we thought might be shifted on when we did our Stay or Go podcast. So if you want to go back and have a look at that, I've forgotten which ones are there, but things like I expected Sanson to be gone. I expected Nakamba to be gone. I expected a couple of others to be gone. It just hasn't worked out that way for whatever reason. The transfer wheel has been greased at the weekend by Arsenal. I think that will start the little bit of a merry-go-round around the Premier League. Just because
I wouldn't like to be looking for a holding midfielder right now. I'd like to be selling one, put it that way. I wouldn't like to be
thankfully, we don't need one, and hopefully somebody will come in and see something in Nakamba. Don't get me wrong, I've always liked Nakamba. He's just not up to the level that we need to be at now. at this stage, and I think that's what ultimately led to Ashley Young leaving the club, which we never spoke about too. I think it's a case of we get someone in here for the future on the wages that Ashley Young would have been on, which was quite a decent chunk of change. I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't keep him on as some kind of player coach, but I'm hearing that Ashley Young wanted one more year playing, and we couldn't offer that to them, and that's what it is. So good luck to him. I never warmed to him again after him diving against us at Old Trafford, and that's just my warped memory and how it works. I have no problem shaking his hand, but it'll still stick in my throat that he dived against us at Old Trafford, the same way it sticks in my throat that Jack dived against us this year.
Yeah. Well, I never warmed to him when he came back.
White York did the same thing, by the way. I've never forgotten that either.
Yeah, we'll see. Couple of people there. Mark, you're off. Completely forgot when I popped you up earlier on. You're going to be at the American Games. I was going to say there. That makes it sound like some sort of track meet or something like that. But you're going to be at the preseason games in the States, of course, coming from Pittsburgh. I hope you have great crack over there, Mark, and I hope the team put on a show for you. Just answer Tim's question there, I suppose, about the am I kind of not concerned, but was I expecting more players in? I was expecting two players, but not a central midfielder and a centre half, I suppose. I'm okay. I'm okay with signing players when we need to sign them. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and there's a lot to be said for getting your players in before you go to the United States. But there's also a lot to be said for getting the right players in, regardless of the time that you get them in at. And I know a lot of people are saying, but Jesus, you need to let them bed into the team. Like, we'd all love to have 6 new signings this offseason and every single one of them start on the first day of the season. But it ain't going to happen. Even if we sign 6 players, they all won't start the first day of the season. And what I'm getting at here is, if we were to go with the same 11 that finished, well, which we can't because we can because Digne is there and the team that finished, I suppose, if you were to be pedantic about it. But the team that started the last game of last season, if we were to go out and start that 11, the first game of the season, I don't think I'd be too upset because I know it works. And I know Unai Emery knows it works. And I know Unai Emery can get a tune out of it. And yes, we can bring the players off the bench. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if it did happen, it wouldn't be a team sheet tantrum per se from me. I would be expecting, like even at that, I would be expecting him to put faith on quite a lot of the players that we have to hand anyway. Yes, we're not going to have Alex Moreno. We're not going to have Jacob Ramsey for the start of the season. Maybe a Tielemans comes in there. Maybe there's a reshake of midfield. Maybe McGinn shifts over to the left hand side. Tielemans comes to the right hand side, and plays that narrow position. I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be wholesale changes the first day of the season. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, and if everything goes to plan, you'd love for your players to be in before you go on your 3-game trip out foreign. You'd love to have the TV cameras on them. You'd love to have the excitement around them. Like, you'd love to have the excitement around the 50 million pound signing of Moussa Diaby. You'd love to have Sky talking about him. You'd love to have CBS talking about him. You'd love to have Peacock talking about him. Whatever TV channels are covering over there, the first thing they're going to go to is the big money, flashy light signing. That's what they're going to go to. That would be great for the club over there. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. They're going to talk about the big players we have in there already. They're going to talk about the Pau Torreses. They're going to talk about Martinez is going to be like, Martinez will be treated like a royal king over there, I would imagine.
He will. Yep. 100%.
Because he's going to be Spanish speaking. When they go to Florida, they're going to be catering to. When they go to Orlando, they're going to be catering to a big Spanish speaking community there as well. Everybody's going to know because the World Cup has just happened about Argentina. His save is iconic. He is going to be fired out in front of every single TV camera over in the United States. So I think from that point of view, I think from this, the reason why I'd like them there is to sell the club. I'm not too disappointed if they're not there from a gelling point of view because the league is long enough to be able to do that. Would it be ideal to have him? Yes. But am I concerned over it? I presume I'm not. Sorry. I don't presume I'm not. I know I'm not.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't think there's any need to be. I think everybody in the comments would agree that they would love to see the business done. But even at that, you'd still have people looking for more at the end of the window. So let's just let the management team work their magic and the scouting team. And I've no doubt there'll be more coming in. But I know for a fact we need to shift players on. We all know that there's some players there that are just not going to cut it at this level. So we're going to have to free up some of the budget in order to get more in. So obviously there is some money there, and we were obviously short of that full 25 complement, so we can do that. But in order to bring in more now, and don't get me wrong, we've already strengthened the team and strengthened it well by bringing in two really good players, two really good international players that have done it at international level. For both of their countries, we've got Pau Torres, who's won multiple trophies as well. So absolutely nothing to worry about so far. You talk about that last game we played. I have no doubt that we are actually stronger now than what we were then. So it's just we just got to play the long ball, let's say, and try and shift out some of the players that are there. I see Gaz is mentioning Keenan Davis and Wesley. Yes, that's two. Nakamba. I don't think anybody rates Sanson after three managers not giving him the opportunities that he would have expected here as well. So there's a couple more in there as well that we spoke about in that podcast. So let's just wait and see what happens.
Paddy, going back to Moussa Diaby there, Chad and Villa Forever podcast. If you don't know Chad, you got to get to know him. You got to watch his podcast. Watch all the Villa podcasts. Or like content is coming out people's ears at the moment, and we should be happy about this. We should be happy about where Villa are at the moment, and the future under Unai Emery, for sure. But Chad says here, if we signed Diaby, would you like to see him play in the opposite wing position? With Bailey, I presume that's the opposite wing position to Bailey. So would you like to see us play maybe two wingers? Could you ever envisage a situation where Unai Emery plays with two wingers, Paddy?
I think we have to be open to any suggestion that he mixes things up this year, especially if he brings in a couple more players of that ilk, because he's going to have to keep them happy. So he's going to have to mix up the let's just say the formation for whoever the opposition is, be it on European level or be it in the Premier League. If we get through this qualifying, which I fully expect us to, that we will need to be shifting people around and giving people the rest that they need in order to prioritise. Should we win a match in Estonia on a Thursday night by 5 or 6, or should we win it by 1 or 2 in order to go and beat, say, Chelsea on a Sunday? I know where my priorities would lie with that one. I would have every faith that we would have a good enough team to go and win the game on the Thursday night and to put out our best team against whatever the top seed is in that league. So there's going to be a place for everybody. There's I had a guy talk to me today about the likes of having utility players, and in that utility player he was talking about the likes of Callum Chambers, who may stay around the team because of his versatility and where he can play, especially at the European level, and having a little bit of experience in that in the past with Arsenal. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot for Unai Emery to think about. I would imagine his head is absolutely melted at the moment, trying to decide what he's going to do with some of them players. But I think that's a better place to be than be going into a potential European run with a very light squad, which we don't have. So we finished the league very strong with what we have, and we've strengthened with two world-class players. So I'm not overly worried just yet.
Martin Leonard, you guys will know Martin from the Villa Park podcast as well. Once again, as I say, all the podcasts out there, watch them all. They're all fantastic. And start up your own as well if you're thinking about it. Why not? That's all I fucking talk about.
There's room for everybody.
There's room for absolutely everybody, is right. Martin asks, quick question, lads. Do you think we'll get a left and a right back? I'm hearing Digne up for sale. John Townley came out during the week and said that Digne isn't up for sale. What do you think, Paddy? I can't see us selling Digne and going in with... I would be surprised if we sold him. It could be a deadline day sale, put it that way. That's the only way I see him going. deadline day, one of these ones that flashes up on the screen and says, I was going to say Roma, I don't know why, but Roma are interested in Luca Digne and they want to spend 14 million on him.
Well,
Something along those
remember,
lines.
we still have an injured Alex Moreno, and we don't know how he's going to
That's
be when
why.
he comes back.
That's
So
exactly why.
for that reason alone, I don't think Digne is a priority to shift out of the building. I think the worry with everybody is his reported wages, and getting that off the wage bill would be probably a priority if that's what people are thinking. But for me, I'm more than happy for him to be there because he's a really good player.
What my thought in it as well is, if the wages are going to be hard to shift, fine, keep him. Do you know why?
Yeah.
Because he's good. Because he's good. We have a
He's
lot of
good.
other players that aren't good, that aren't decent enough wages, and that we can't shift. A couple of people, I can't find it here. A couple of people talking about Bertie. Hands up, Bertie fan. Always have been. You know, just does that weird thing that we never see. That goal against Leicester, that goal against West Brom. You know, we don't have other players in the team that can do things like that, and that's quite cool as well. Is he the all-around player? No. Is he frustrating as hell? That's probably why my beard is going completely grey. He likes his stuff that Bertie does. But Bertie has a slight injury at the moment. It's nothing major from what we know. But he was in talks with Turkish team. That's the one I just popped up there, Paddy.
I just put it up again because
Oh.
he left out just a little bit. He asked a left and right back. I fully expect us to sign a right back, yes.
Yeah, I think the Thomas Mooney piece is, I think there was more to that than met the eye, and no ITK here. I just think there was more to that than meets the eye.
Some
It's not
signings just make sense, don't they? You know, when you look.
It's not a priority piece, I think, for us. You know, I think somebody to come in and cover 800-900, maybe 1,000 minutes over the course of the season, I think it just makes sense. But with Bertie, I think he's in talks with a Turkish team. I think a Turkish team that got promoted, if I'm right in saying. I can't remember what their name is. I think it's Samspor, if I remember rightly. That'll test my memory. This could be my Rain Man moment. Is it Samspor? I think is what they were called. That he was linked with them, and I can see Bertie being moved on. I can see. Will we get a king's ransom back for him? No. I don't think we will. Will we get a king's ransom for Sanson? No. But can I see him be moved? Absolutely. There is this French club that will bring in Morgan Sanson for sure. And look, I think, getting wages off the bill is worth more to us than getting transfer money back because of amortization, all this kind of crack. You know, it's still an accountable asset, I suppose, if you sell a player mid-contract based on what their future earnings would be, and writing that off against their proposed cost to the club as well. So from an accounting point of view, it's still a positive. So I'm told. I had one more question for you, Paddy. Are you concerned about the backup goalkeeper, about us not signing another backup goalkeeper? To be honest with you, I'm not. Because we're going to hold on to Olsen until we buy someone else, and then we'll probably get rid of Olsen. I don't think it's a case of getting rid of Olsen. And to be honest with you,
I think so.
I fully expect this, if we don't buy another goalkeeper, to go into next season with Robin Olsen.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with it because I think the only reason we've got to worry about any long-term appearances for Olsen is if Emi Martinez was, touch wood, to pick up an injury. I do envisage that he would want a couple of games in Europa Conference League group stages with a backup goalkeeper playing. So that might entice somebody who's at the back end of his career to come and play for Aston Villa and get a run of games like that. It might be just what somebody wants. It might be just what Olsen needs. I'm not overly concerned about that because we've got one of the best goalkeepers in the world, if not the best goalkeeper in the world, in my opinion, in there. So, and we've spoken about it before. He's 30 years of age, but very little in the tank with regards to high pressure situations and stuff like that, and match time. Obviously, he trains every day, but there's no reason why Emi Martinez couldn't play for another 10 years. I have no doubt in my mind that he could.
Paddy, don't threaten me with a good time. Don't threaten me with a good time. As long as he plays for Aston Villa, that is.
Yeah.
Bog the Villain asked you, and we're kind of going back to what we mentioned there about wages, about our wage structure. Are you worried that having players on inflated wages, that's why they're hard to sell? Is it wise to have a left back allegedly on 150k a week? We leave the last part out, and I'm going to talk about the first part because we've kind of covered the last part with Digne. I'm going to ask a question back to the chat room. Do we honestly think that West Ham don't have players on massively inflated wages? Outside of Declan Rice, do West Ham sell brilliantly? I put us up. I put ourselves in, like, whenever I ask myself this question, or whenever this question gets asked, outside of the top six and Brighton, Southampton of maybe 10 years ago, teams in the Premier League don't sell brilliantly. They're a loss maker on a transfer on transfer fees, and a lead maker on amortization of contracts. I've nothing to back that up. Nothing to back that up other than perception. But if Kieran Maguire from the Price of Football podcast was here, he would be able to put out the statistics, and I'd be surprised if I was wrong on that one. It just doesn't seem like we've got brilliant. We'll have clubs to go through maybe a year or two of having great sales. And they might go, oh, Jesus, they got 40 million for this person. They got 50 million for this person. We got 100 million for Jack Grealish. That's money in the bank for us, 100% profit, no need of anything, and massive amortization on his contract because he'd signed a brand new contract the year before. So from that accounting point of view. So, while Bollock, I'm not criticizing you. Don't get me wrong. This isn't a go to or anything like that. My mind always goes to, it's like Aston Villa have the worst wage structure in the league. So if you were to just look at Twitter and see it, that's what you'd think. But West Ham's wages must be in tatters as well, from that point of view. And do they sell as well as we do? I'm not sure they do. And they've bought a lot more players worth over, I won't say a lot more, but like, think of it. They bought Skamaka, they've bought Paqueta. You know, they've spent more money, and they're bigger named players than we have on ours so far. So yes, they got Europe. Yes, they've finished higher in the league last couple of seasons. But I think, you know, where we are at the moment, and West Ham are probably vying, I think, from a financial point of view. I could be wrong. Wrong.
And look,
am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong, no. But like we do know that Luca Digne is on big wages. We know that Felipe Coutinho is on big wages.
Yeah.
There's a number of other players there whose wages we could do without, that just are not going to play in this team. So that's what I mean. There's a whole lot of balls that need to move around the court before we can start diving in and spending like sailors, let's say. But look, I've no doubt the checkbook will be open regardless what happens. But we do need to ship players out, either on loan, in the case of Wesley, Courtney House, Keenan Davis, all these players on 1 year left on their contract. They'd be more than happy, I would imagine. But they'd love to get a 3 or 4 million for them. If that doesn't transpire, there's no reason why they wouldn't send them out on loan once somebody is paying all their wages, I would imagine.
Yeah. Gaz says Kamara and Tielemans on big wages, and they're likely going to be starters for us. I think what the question was is people not starting for us, and it's a valid question. Don't get me wrong. If Moreno comes back and Digne is stuck in the bench, like when I talk about Digne being sold, like we have no incentive to sell him right now unless our socks get blown off with an offer. We don't have an incentive to sell him right now. That's why I think it could be a deadline day signing. That way, Moreno will be closer to coming back, and we'd be able to weigh up our options, I suppose, from that point out. There will be contingency there as well. Coutinho, fair point that people make on him, hasn't lived up to these 170 or whatever it is per week wages. If a club comes in for him with a decent offer, I think we can all agree that he's gone. Kamara and Tielemans, they're with us for the next 3 years, regardless, and they're of the caliber of players that I think we'll see a return on those. Like when I think of the likes of West Ham, when I talk about West Ham, like Pablo Fornals is on a decent whack of cash, at West Ham. Said Benrahma is on a decent whack of cash at West Ham. And that's kind of what I'm getting at there, that they have Their centre halves, all their centre halves are on a decent wedge, I would imagine. Because they've been brought in, they've been carefully curated, they've been brought in for big money. The Moroccan lad whose name escapes me, the guy they signed from PSG, Kerrer, is on a decent wedge. All good players, all really well scouted good players that are in there. They're not coming here to play for 30 grand a week, so I think because we know we've got one or two, we've got maybe two, maybe three massive outliers that don't get a lot of game time. I think that weighs heavily on our minds. Whereas I would imagine, and like Skamaka's on the bench. Skamaka ain't playing for 30 grand a week. He costs 50 million. Skamaka is probably on, he was one of the best Italian talents in the striking department, and he could very well easily come good next season, but he's going to be on a wedge. I just picked West Ham off the top of my head, really, and I think I've picked a pretty good example of a team that have probably the same kind of wedge structures ourselves from that point of view, but sustained success is going to allow us to not really worry about things like that. And 100k for our 70, 80, 90, 100k for a player, I hope becomes the norm, because that means we're going to be successful. And that means we've been successful, should I say. Anything else, Paddy, you want to go through before I hit the end broadcast button?
Not necessarily. I'm very surprised we spoke for 41 minutes or whatever it is already, and we've 200 and odd people in there. So if you're in there, please hit the like button, for nothing else, only to put a smile on our face at how many people have liked the video. So do like and subscribe, as we say. Now I'm doing your job for you, Neil. You keep going.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Costs you nothing. It's free. Like and subscribe. I'm brutal at that stuff. And also, as I mentioned below on the bottom there, Gym Plus Coffee, I just haven't gotten around. I'm going to do a little standalone video just on that company themselves. They're fantastic. They really are. They're great, reputable, conscientious company, Irish company, sportswear company. And as I say, they supply gear to the Aston Villa women's team. And as far as I know, I think we're the only crowd that are affiliated with Gym Plus Coffee. They're a huge brand over here in Ireland, and I know that they're getting cracking over in the UK as well. But and also the Sports Social Podcast Network as well. As I've said before, after you're finished listening to this podcast, and if there's any other sports that you're interested in, pop on there. You'll see there's a repository of sporting podcasts there, and they've been really good to us. And as I say, if you guys want to just browse through their catalog, see if there's any other sporting podcasts you like there, and give them a listen. We'd really appreciate that as well, just to give them a help out, because they've been really good to us and teaching us how to do stuff with podcasts and stuff like that. You wouldn't think it that we've been taught anything, Paddy, would you? And that we've been given any tips and tricks. No.
There was David Scott did send us a
David
message.
Scott. Did she go through with the marriage, David? Did she show up?
He did. He's just back from his honeymoon, I think. He asked us a question on Twitter. He said, I see João Felix or Felix.
Oh, great question. Yes, I meant to bring that up. João Felix. The João Felix rumours, I've never really gotten on board with. I always see him. I do see him in a kind of a claret and a kind of a blue jersey. I've always felt this is a move to get to PSG. I just don't know why he comes out today spouting stuff about Barca. I just think he's got PSG written all over him, Paddy, and I have since he left Chelsea. What do you think yourself? I can't see him in our beloved claret and blue.
I'm not really bothered. He wasn't a player that ever really set my heart on fire and said I'd love to see him play for Aston Villa. So for that reason alone, I never really bought into it. I saw a lot of people buying into it, so he obviously has something to offer. But for me, from what I've seen him play, both at international and with Chelsea, he didn't exactly brim me with any confidence.
I look. There's a definite player there. Like you know, how would I put this? Atletico didn't make that much of a mistake. It's buying him for 100 million. I think they bought it once again. Okay, I'm going to reopen an old wound here. It's one of the reasons why why I'm reluctant to pay 60, 70 million or 50 million for Brennan Johnson. I bet you Atletico Madrid would have liked to have seen another season of João Felix, but they had to do it then. They had to buy him then because they knew he had potential. Was he a £100 million player? No. Was he maybe a 50, 60 million pound player? Probably yes, he was at that age. But they had to pay the 100 million because they had to get in ahead of other teams. They had lost players, they had lost strikers and attacking players. They had lost Griezmann. And Villa, while Villa haven't lost players, we're in that position at the moment as well that, it's not a slight on Brennan Johnson's ability. I'll keep on saying this because I can guarantee you, Paddy, after this podcast goes out, there will be 6 to 10 messages either agreeing with my take on Brennan Johnson or disagreeing with it on it. And that's fine. And I want that. And that's cool. This is what this is about, discourse. As I've always said, I'm not trying to convince anybody of whether a player is good or not.
No.
But my big thing is that we're in a position where if we think that Brennan Johnson is going to be good in 2 years' time, we have to pony up now. We can't wait, because if he's a great 6 months, while his fee may not change, just other teams are going to jump in, and we're not in a position where we can't get leapfrogged by a Spurs or by even teams that we finished ahead of last season will still leapfrog us because of the I suppose the consistency they've had over the last 10 to 12 years.
And we've had this conversation. I think we both agreed on Brennan Johnson, and I think you were a bit surprised that I felt the same way. But for me, I just think the figure that's been touted out there for him is too much for a potential player. I think at this stage of our redevelopment, we need proven players in there, or else pay less for unproven players that we're taking a risk with. But I just can't see us taking that big of a risk on a player that might set the world on fire in 2 years.
And I think he will. As I say, I think Brennan Johnson will be an absolutely, like, Brennan Johnson and Jared Bowen, and he could be next Jared Bowen, he could be the next Harvey Barnes, he could be the next Jamie Vardy. There's no question in that there's a talent here. It's going to need to be nurtured at whatever club he goes to, for sure, because he is raw in a lot of elements. And I think even his most fervent fan will admit that, and that's fine. That's not a criticism. That's just an observation. But as I say, the big thing is that Aston Villa will have to pony up the money for him now, because if he continues his form in 6 months' time, they'll get gazumped. And am I comfortable? My biggest thing about it is I want to see that next 6 months to see if he can do it for another 6 to 8 months. But I know that Aston Villa don't have that luxury. That's always been my biggest thing with the Brennan Johnson transfer. It's always been. It's not his talent. It's not what he potentially could become. It's literally just, some players you just want to see them do it again. And I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will do it again. Paddy, I think we're going to leave it at that. That's 47 minutes. Thank you so much to everybody. We had bones and nearly 300 people watching there at one stage. Love you guys, every single one of you. It's great to come back here. I literally got out of the car, ran into the podcast boudoir, and started this podcast. I've been traveling I was up at 5 to 5 this morning to hop into a car to get traveling. So, what am I on now? So that's coming up on nearly 18 hours of being awake. And I wouldn't like to end it any other way than I did tonight, speaking to you guys and speaking to you, Paddy. Great to have you back, Paddy. Sometimes talking into the abyss makes me seem a bit senile, but I'm glad to have you back. And I can trust.
Sometimes I'm in the headspace that you are talking into the abyss, but whatever.
But still, it's I'm glad to have you back. And we are going hell for leather now for the rest of the off season, as I say. The game on Sunday that we play against Philadelphia. It's Philadelphia Sunday, is it?
Newcastle in Philadelphia.
Newcastle is the Philadelphia game. I mean, yes, Newcastle in Philadelphia. That was the one we were supposed to be going to, Paddy. I get to see another famous team in green, not Philadelphia, but I get to see another famous team in green. Spoiler alert: Limerick are in green, for those who don't know. Over there is my signed Limerick jersey for those of you who do know. So we'll do something. We'll do Team Sheet Tantrum before that. Paddy, you might need to. Paddy, are you actually going to be awake and able to do stuff? Are you going watching the game? Actually, should have asked you, because I'll be doing this on my phone from somewhere in Dublin.
I had this conversation with you when I was on holidays when I watched one of the hurling matches, and I said to you, I woke up the next morning, I sent you a message saying I have the greatest of respect for the likes of Connor in Brazil and Mark Holmes in Australia that do this on a weekly basis, because I was shattered. So by the end of next week, I will have stayed up till 2:30 or 3 in the morning watching 3 Villa games. Of course I will. 100%.
You can drive the bus, so while I talk absolute nonsense.
While you're on the bus.
Well, I probably will be on. I'll be on the bus to watch the game anyway. I don't know will I be on the bus to do this, but I will definitely have a few libations anyway. I'm on board at that stage, and
Great stuff.
yeah, absolutely. I will have the big red head of a man. Hopefully, fingers crossed. If Limerick win, I'll have the big red head of a man who's been celebrating anyway. That's for sure. But anyway, we'll catch you guys on Sunday. We'll catch you guys before. God, there's loads of days left. Anything breaks, we'll be chatting to you guys anyway. I'll jump back on. I think there's going to be good news this week about something. I think they're going to jet off to the States, and there's still time to get stuff done. Probably not before they jet off, should I say? But it'll be interesting to see who goes to the States from the extended squad. And
Exactly.
look, we'll enjoy those games anyway. And at the end of the day, I think the first two games will probably be pedestrian enough in some ways. And I think the Dunai won't show his hand until the last game in DC, isn't it? DC?
In DC, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Brentford.
that,
Yeah.
and then we'll ramp up then for Lazio and Valencia then when we come back. So, catch you again during the rest of the week, everybody. I hope you all stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.